The Great Hall of Harmony Point stretched out like a vast metal cathedral floating in space. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the circular chamber, their voices mixing into a strange symphony of clicks, chirps, and musical tones. Ambassador Ravi Chen sat quietly in the human section, watching as each species presented their achievements to the Galactic Cultural Summit. The walls of the station were made of clear crystal, showing the endless stars outside. Ships from dozens of different worlds hung in space nearby, each one unique and beautiful. Some looked like giant flowers made of metal. Others resembled swimming creatures with flowing parts that moved like water. The human ship was simple and gray, but Ravi felt proud of it anyway. Today was the opening ceremony. Each major species would speak about their culture and what they brought to the galaxy. The humans were scheduled to present last, which Ravi found fitting. Humans were still the newest members of this great community. Prince Zephic of the Valdderan Empire stood at the center podium. He was young for his species, only 19 years old, but he carried himself like someone much older. His skin was pale blue and seemed to glow with its own light. Two small horns curved back from his forehead, and his eyes were the color of silver coins. The Valdderans ruled over 40 star systems and were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology. Honored delegates, Prince Zephic began, his voice clear and strong. The Valdderan Empire brings 10,000 years of scientific achievement to share with this assembly. Ravi listened politely as the prince described amazing inventions. Machines that could build entire cities in days, medical devices that could heal any injury in minutes, ships that could cross the galaxy faster than light itself. These gifts of knowledge, the prince continued, we offer freely to those species advanced enough to understand them. The hall filled with appreciative sounds from the other delegates. Ravi nodded respectfully. The Valdderan achievements were truly impressive, but then Prince Zephic's tone changed. His silver eyes swept across the hall and stopped at the human section. A small smile appeared on his face, but it was not a kind smile. Of course, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, we must be careful about sharing such powerful technology. Some species in this galaxy are simply not ready for it. Murmurs began to spread through the hall. Several delegates turned to look at each other with worried expressions. Take the humans, for example, Prince Zephic said, pointing directly at Ravi. They have barely learned to leave their own planet. They fight wars over pieces of dirt and argue about the color of each other's skin. They are like children playing with sharp knives. Ravi felt his face grow warm, but he kept his expression calm. Around him, the other human delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The humans call themselves explorers and diplomats, the prince laughed. But what have they really achieved? They build crude machines that belch smoke and poison their own air. They cannot even keep peace on their single world. Yet they think they deserve to walk among the stars with truly civilized species. The hall grew very quiet. Even the usual background sounds of breathing and movement seemed to stop. Other delegates looked between Prince Zephic and the human section with growing discomfort. They are scavengers, Prince Zephic declared, his voice ringing off the crystal walls. Primitive scavengers playing at civilization. They should be grateful that species like mine are generous enough to share even the smallest scraps of knowledge with them. The silence in the hall became heavy and thick. Ravi could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him, waiting to see how he would respond. Some looked curious, others seemed embarrassed by the prince's words. Ravi's fellow human delegates were tense. Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of the human medical team, had her hands clenched in her lap. Captain Torres of the Human Defense Corps looked ready to stand and speak. They all waited for their ambassador to defend their species, to show these aliens that humans were not weak. But Ravi did something no one expected. He stood up slowly, his chair making a small sound as it moved back. His movements were calm and deliberate. Every being in the hall watched him with complete attention. Ravi looked directly at Prince Zephic for a long moment. His expression was neither angry nor sad. It was simply dignified. Then he turned his gaze to scan the entire assembly, making brief eye contact with delegates from dozens of different worlds. Without saying a single word, Ravi bowed once to the assembly. It was a respectful bow, the kind that honored the gathered representatives rather than showing submission. Then he turned and began walking toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Each step was steady and sure. He did not hurry, nor did he drag his feet. He walked like someone who had made a clear decision and was comfortable with it. The massive doors of the assembly hall opened silently as Ravi approached them. He passed through without looking back and disappeared into the corridor beyond. For several seconds after the doors closed, no one in the hall moved or spoke. Prince Zephic stood at the podium with his mouth slightly open, clearly not expecting this reaction. He had prepared for angry words or diplomatic protests, but not for this strange, silent response. Finally, Elder Korith of the crystalline hegemony cleared her throat with a sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "we should continue with the next presentation." But the atmosphere in the hall had changed completely. The silence that followed was not the respectful quiet of before. It was heavy with questions and uncertainty. What had just happened? What did it mean when a human ambassador simply walked away from an insult without fighting back? News traveled fast through the galaxy, especially when it was strange news. Within 6 hours of the incident at Harmony Point, communication networks across dozens of star systems buzzed with the same question. Why did the human ambassador just walk away? In the crystal towers of the hegemony homeworld, Elder Korith sat with her council members, their translucent forms shimmering with concern. "I have never seen anything like it," she said, her voice like singing glass. The young prince insulted him terribly, but the human showed no anger at all. On the forest world of the Verdant Alliance, Ambassador Thale shared the story with his tree-dwelling colleagues. The human could have argued back, he chittered through his trunk-like nose. He could have listed their achievements or called for formal protests. Instead, he simply left with dignity intact. Even in the deep ocean cities of Aquatica, the dolphin-like Cetans discussed the event in their complex song language. Their ambassador had been present at the summit and described every detail of Ravi's quiet departure, but nowhere was the news more significant than in the royal palace of the Valdderan Empire. Prince Zephic paced back and forth in his chambers, his blue skin glowing brighter with excitement. His 3 closest friends sat on comfortable cushions listening to him retell the story for the 4th time. "You should have seen their faces," the prince said, waving his hands dramatically. "All those aliens sitting there, waiting for the human to cry or beg or make some pathetic speech about friendship." But he knew he was beaten. He knew I was right about his inferior species. His friend Malik nodded eagerly. "You showed him his place, Your Highness. The humans need to understand they are still children compared to us." "Exactly," Zephic smiled. One honest statement about their primitive nature, and their ambassador ran away like a scared animal. But outside the prince's chambers, in the more serious halls of the palace, elder Valdderan advisors met in worried conference. These were beings who had lived for centuries and seen many changes in the galaxy. "This troubles me deeply," said High Counselor Vex, her ancient face creased with concern. "I have read every intelligence report about the humans for the past 50 years. This behavior does not match their patterns." "What do you mean?" asked Defense Minister Kral, leaning forward across the marble table. "Humans are known for their stubbornness," Vex explained. "When insulted, they typically respond with either strong words or clever arguments. They do not simply walk away unless they have a very specific reason." Minister Kral accessed his personal data files with a thought. "According to our military intelligence, humans have never retreated from a verbal confrontation when their species' honor was at stake. They are remarkably consistent in defending their reputation." "Then why?" Vex asked quietly. "Did this one act so differently?" Meanwhile, back at Harmony Point, Ravi Chen sat in his small quarters writing detailed reports. His room was simple compared to the elaborate suites given to other ambassadors. The walls were plain metal and he had only basic furniture. But Ravi preferred it this way. Luxury made him uncomfortable. He finished typing his analysis of the crystalline hegemony's presentation and moved on to the next file. The Avian Collective had shared fascinating research about atmospheric engineering. Ravi wanted to make sure they received proper feedback on their work. His door chimed softly. Dr. Sarah Kim entered, her face full of questions. "Ravi," she said, sitting in the chair across from his desk. "The entire human delegation is confused. Why didn't you respond to that arrogant prince? He insulted our entire species in front of the whole galaxy." Ravi continued typing, his fingers moving steadily across the holographic keyboard. "What would you have had me say, Sarah?" "Anything. You could have reminded them about our medical advances or our peacekeeping efforts, or how we've helped rebuild worlds after disasters. We've earned our place here. Have we?" Ravi asked, looking up at her with calm eyes. Sarah stared at him. Of course we have. You know our record as well as anyone. I know what we have done, Ravi agreed. But do our actions speak louder when I list them in an angry speech or when others remember them on their own? Before Sarah could answer, the door chimed again. Captain Torres entered, followed by two unexpected visitors. Ambassador Thale of the Verdant Alliance and a tall, elegant being with crystal-like features that Ravi recognized as Elder Korath herself. Ambassador Chen, Elder Korath said, her voice filled with curiosity. We hope we are not intruding, but we wanted to speak with you about today's events. Ravi stood and bowed respectfully. You honor me with your visit, Elder. Please sit wherever you are comfortable. Ambassador Thale perched on a specially designed chair that accommodated his tree-like body structure. We are puzzled by your reaction to Prince Zephic's words, he said honestly. In our cultures, such insults would demand immediate response. Your response was a response, Elder Korath observed, her crystal eyes studying Ravi carefully. But we do not understand its meaning. Ravi poured water for his guests from a simple pitcher. The liquid looked strange in Elder Korath's crystal hands, but she accepted it gratefully. Sometimes, Ravi said, the most powerful response is the one that makes others think rather than react. Over the next 2 hours, more visitors arrived at the human quarters. The insect-like representative from the hive worlds came seeking clarification. The energy beings from the Plasma Consortium sent a formal inquiry. Even the usually isolated delegates from the machine intelligence wanted to understand the humans' behavior. Each visitor left more puzzled than when they arrived, but also more thoughtful. Ravi answered their questions with patience and wisdom, never once mentioning Prince Zephic's insults or defending human achievements directly. As the station's artificial night cycle began, Sarah Kim sat alone in the human delegation's common room, thinking about what she had witnessed. Other species were talking about humans tonight, but not in the way Prince Zephic had intended. They were talking about dignity and wisdom and the strange power of silence. The next morning brought the summit's second day of presentations. The great hall filled again with delegates from across the galaxy. But something felt different. Conversations were quieter, and many beings glanced toward the human section with curious eyes. Prince Zephic entered with his usual confidence, but he noticed the change in atmosphere immediately. The other young nobles who usually gathered around him seemed distracted. Even his own advisors appeared uncomfortable. As the morning sessions began, Prince Zephic found himself listening more carefully to what other species were saying. The first presenter was Commander Reef from the Aquatic Federation. Our recent expansion into the outer spiral faced many challenges, Commander Reef explained, her gills fluttering as she spoke. The water recycling systems on 3 of our new colonies failed completely. We thought we might lose thousands of lives. She paused, activating a holographic display that showed images of underwater cities. Then human engineers arrived, she continued. They worked for 18 days straight, sleeping only a few hours each night. They redesigned our entire water system using methods we had never considered. When we offered payment, they refused. They said helping others was payment enough. Prince Zephic shifted in his seat. This did not match what he had been taught about human greed and selfishness. The next presentation came from Dr. Chirp of the Avian Collective. Her feathered form moved gracefully as she spoke about recent medical challenges. The swift plague nearly destroyed our outer colonies last year, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Our best doctors could not understand this new disease. It spread too fast and changed too quickly. The holographic display showed images of sick bird-like beings in medical facilities. Human doctors arrived within days of our distress call, Dr. Chirp continued. They brought new ideas about treating diseases that change and adapt. They worked alongside our medical teams for months, sharing all their knowledge freely. They saved over 2 million lives. Prince Zephic frowned. His teachers had always said humans were too primitive to contribute meaningful medical knowledge. During the lunch break, the prince walked through the station's common areas, hoping to clear his head. But everywhere he went, he heard more stories. Near the food courts, two delegates from the Silicon Collective were discussing trade agreements. The humans are the only species that honors their contracts perfectly, one was saying. They have never broken a promise or demanded changes after agreements are signed. At the observation deck, a group from the methane worlds chatted about recent construction projects. Human builders helped us design new cities that work with our atmosphere instead of fighting against it, their leader explained. They studied our environment for months to understand it completely. Other species just try to force their designs on our world. Prince Zephic felt increasingly confused. Were these delegates talking about the same humans he had insulted yesterday? In the afternoon, he decided to skip the presentations and visit the station's cultural exchange center. Different species had set up displays showing their art, music, and traditions. He wanted to see what the humans had contributed. The human display was smaller than most others, but it drew constant crowds. Prince Zephic watched from a distance, as beings from dozens of different species examined human artwork and listened to human music. A family of crystal beings stood before a simple painting that showed Earth's sunrise. Their young offspring pressed his face close to the image, his crystal form glowing with excitement. "Look how they paint light," the child said in wonder. "It looks so warm and soft. I want to see the real thing someday." His parents smiled. "Maybe we will visit Earth when you are older. The humans have open invitation policies for peaceful tourism." Prince Zephic approached the human display slowly. A human woman with kind eyes stood nearby answering questions from visitors. "Excuse me," the prince said, his voice uncertain. "I am Prince Zephic of the Valdderan Empire." The woman smiled warmly. "I know who you are, Your Highness. I am Dr. Lisa Park, head of Human Cultural Studies. How can I help you?" "I was wondering," he said carefully, "about your species' relationship with others in the galaxy." Dr. Park gestured toward the busy display area. "What would you like to know?" "Yesterday, I said some things about humans that were—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Perhaps not entirely accurate. I am beginning to think I may have been misinformed." Dr. Park nodded thoughtfully. "What have you been told about us?" "That humans are primitive and selfish. That you take more than you give. That you cannot be trusted with advanced technology." "I see," Dr. Park said gently. "Would you like to see our actual records?" She activated a small holographic display that showed statistics from the Galactic Council. Prince Zephic stared in amazement at the numbers. Humans had the highest rating for treaty compliance in galactic history. They had provided disaster relief to over 40 different species in the past decade alone. They had shared medical advances, engineering solutions, and agricultural techniques freely with anyone who asked. Most surprising of all, humans had the lowest rate of territorial expansion. While other species often conquered new worlds for resources, humans usually only established colonies on uninhabited planets. "But why do my people believe different things about you?" Prince Zephic asked. Dr. Park looked sad. "Sometimes information gets passed down incorrectly, especially when there is limited contact between our species. The Valdderan Empire has had very little direct interaction with humans. Most of what your people know about us comes from old reports or second-hand sources." That evening, Prince Zephic met with his senior advisors in their private chambers. He asked them directly about human trustworthiness. High Counselor Vex looked uncomfortable. "Your Highness, our intelligence services rank humans as the most reliable species in the galaxy for keeping agreements." "Then why have I been taught that they are untrustworthy?" Minister Krall cleared his throat. "The teachings you received were based on very old information, from when humans first joined the galactic community. They were indeed less advanced then, but that was over 50 years ago." Prince Zephic felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Are you telling me that everything I said yesterday was wrong?" The advisors exchanged worried glances. "Your Highness," Vex said carefully, "perhaps it would be wise to learn more about current human activities before making further public statements." That night, Prince Zephic lay awake in his luxurious quarters, staring at the stars outside his window. For the first time in his life, he wondered if being right about something was less important than being kind. Prince Zephic woke early on, The third day of the summit, his mind still full of questions from the night before, he decided to explore the station more carefully, hoping to understand what was really happening around him. As he walked through the corridors, he noticed something strange. Groups of delegates were gathering in small meeting rooms, having intense discussions about technical problems. These were not official summit meetings. They seemed to be informal working groups. Curious, Prince Zephic approached one of the rooms where he could hear animated conversation. Through the open doorway, he saw representatives from the Silicon Collective clustered around a holographic display showing complex engineering diagrams. Mining equipment keeps breaking down in high radiation zones, one of them was explaining. We lose 3 machines every week. To the prince's surprise, Ambassador Ravi Chen sat among them, studying the display carefully. Have you considered using ceramic shielding instead of metal? Ravi asked. Humans discovered that certain ceramic composites actually become stronger when exposed to radiation. The silicon delegate's metallic face brightened. We never thought of that approach. Could you show us the specifications? Of course, Ravi said, pulling out a simple data tablet. I will send you everything we have learned about radiation-resistant materials. No payment needed. Knowledge should be shared. Prince Zephic stepped back, confused. Why was the human ambassador helping other species solve their problems? And why was he doing it for free? He continued walking and found another informal gathering in the station's science laboratory. This time, representatives from the Gas Giant Confederation were discussing atmospheric engineering problems. Our floating cities keep losing altitude, their leader was saying. The storms are becoming too strong for our current designs. Again, Ravi was there, offering suggestions. On Earth, we learned to work with weather patterns instead of fighting them, he explained. We could share our storm prediction models and flexible architecture designs. These might help your cities bend instead of break during storms. The gas giant representatives looked amazed. You would share such valuable technology? Technology is only valuable when it helps people, Ravi replied simply. Prince Zephic spent the entire morning following these informal meetings from a distance. In every single one, he found Ravi quietly helping other species solve difficult problems. The human ambassador never asked for anything in return. He never mentioned yesterday's insult or tried to make anyone feel sorry for him. By lunchtime, Prince Zephic felt deeply confused and somewhat ashamed. This was not the behavior of a primitive or selfish being. This was the behavior of someone who truly cared about others. He was heading back to his quarters when his personal communicator buzzed urgently. The message was from his home palace marked with emergency priority. Prince Zephic, came the voice of the palace medical chief. Your sister, Princess Nara, has fallen seriously ill. We need you to return immediately. Fear shot through the prince's body like ice water. Nara was only 16, barely more than a child. She was the light of his life, always laughing and asking questions about the galaxy. What is wrong with her? He asked, his voice shaking. We do not know, the medical chief admitted. Her symptoms do not match any known Valdderan diseases. Her temperature is rising rapidly and she has difficulty breathing. Our best doctors are puzzled. Prince Zephic ran toward the docking bay where his ship waited. But as he reached the corridor junction, he stopped suddenly. An idea came to him, one that would have been unthinkable just 2 days ago. Instead of continuing to his ship, he turned and ran toward the human quarters. He found Ravi in the common area, reviewing reports on his data tablet. When he saw the prince approaching, he stood up politely. Your Highness, Ravi said calmly, how may I help you? My sister is dying, Prince Zephic blurted out, his royal composure completely gone. Our doctors cannot identify her illness. I know I have no right to ask this after what I said about your species, but do humans have medical knowledge that might help her? Ravi set down his tablet immediately. His expression became intensely focused. Tell me her symptoms, he said. Prince Zephic described everything the palace doctors had reported. Ravi listened carefully, asking several detailed questions about Valdderan physiology and medical practices. Dr. Sarah Kim is our chief medical officer, Ravi said. She specializes in cross-species medicine. Would you allow her to examine your sister's medical data? Yes, the prince said desperately. Anything that might help. Within minutes, Dr. Kim joined them, along with 2 other human medical specialists. They studied the transmitted medical scans and test results with intense concentration. I think I know what this is, Dr. Kim said after 20 minutes. We have seen similar symptoms in 3 other species. It is a rare autoimmune condition that sometimes develops when beings travel between different atmospheric environments. Can you treat it? Prince Zephic asked. Yes, but we would need to be there in person to administer the treatment properly. The medication must be adjusted continuously, based on her body's response. Prince Zephic stared at them. You would come to my world to help her? Of course, Ravi said. A child's life is more important than politics. 4 hours later, a human medical shuttle followed Prince Zephic's royal ship through hyperspace toward the Valdderan homeworld. Dr. Kim and her team worked throughout the journey, preparing specialized equipment for treating a Valdderan patient. When they arrived at the palace, Princess Nara was unconscious and barely breathing. The Valdderan doctors had done everything they could, but her condition continued to worsen. The human medical team worked through the night. They had to modify their equipment several times to accommodate Valdderan biology, but they never gave up. Dr. Kim stayed by Nara's side for 18 straight hours, adjusting medications and monitoring her vital signs. Just before dawn, Princess Nara opened her silver eyes and smiled weakly at her brother. Prince Zephic knelt beside her bed, tears flowing down his blue cheeks. When he looked up at the human doctors, he saw something he had never understood before. These beings had traveled across space to save a child from a species that had insulted them. They had worked tirelessly without asking for payment or political favors. They had risked their own safety to help someone they had never met. This was true strength. This was real nobility. Princess Nara recovered completely over the next 3 days, her laughter once again filling the palace halls. But Prince Zephic felt like a completely different person. Every time he looked at his sister, he remembered how close they had come to losing her, and how the humans had saved her without asking for anything in return. Dr. Kim and her medical team prepared to leave for the summit's final day. Prince Zephic met them at the palace landing platform, carrying a small ceremonial box. Dr. Kim, he said formally, my family wishes to offer you our highest medal of honor for saving Princess Nara's life. Dr. Kim smiled kindly, but shook her head. Thank you, Your Highness, but we cannot accept payment or rewards. We helped because it was the right thing to do. But surely there must be something we can give you, the prince insisted. There is one thing, Dr. Kim said thoughtfully. Help us build understanding between our peoples. That would mean more to us than any medal. Prince Zephic nodded slowly. He understood now what she meant. The journey back to Harmony Point gave the prince time to think about everything that had happened. His advisors noticed the change in him immediately. He asked different questions now, listened more carefully to their answers, and seemed to weigh every word before speaking. Your Highness, High Counselor Vex said during the trip, what will you say at the summit's closing ceremony? I will tell the truth, Prince Zephic replied simply. When they arrived at the station, Prince Zephic went immediately to find Ambassador Ravi. He discovered the human in one of the smaller meeting rooms, helping a group of younger delegates from various species work through a complex trade dispute. The key is finding solutions where everyone benefits, Ravi was explaining patiently. Competition can be healthy, but cooperation builds lasting success. Prince Zephic waited until the meeting ended, then approached Ravi directly. The other delegates watched with obvious curiosity. Ambassador Chen, the prince said formally, might I speak with you privately? Ravi nodded and led him to a quiet observation lounge overlooking the stars. They sat in comfortable chairs while ships moved slowly past the windows. Ambassador, Prince Zephic began, his voice serious. I owe you an apology that goes far beyond words. What I said about your species was not only wrong, it was cruel and ignorant. Ravi listened quietly, his expression calm and patient. I have spent my whole life believing things about humans that were completely false. The prince continued. I was taught that you were primitive and selfish, but I have seen the truth with my own eyes. You saved my sister's life. You help every species you encounter. You share your knowledge freely and ask nothing in return. Your Highness, Ravi said gently, we all make mistakes when we act on incomplete information. What matters is what we do when we learn the truth. I want to make this right, Prince Zephic said earnestly, but I do not know how to undo the damage I have caused. Ravi was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. May I ask you something, Your Highness? Of course. When I walked away from your words the other day, what did you think it meant? Prince Zephic felt his cheeks grow warm with shame. At first I thought it meant I had won. I thought you were admitting defeat and running away. And now? Now I understand that you were showing me something I was too young and foolish to recognize. You were showing dignity. You were demonstrating that some things are more important than winning arguments. Ravi smiled for the first time since they had started talking. Your Highness, you have learned in 3 days what many beings never learn in their entire lives. That wisdom will serve you well as a leader. The summit's closing ceremony took place that evening in the Great Hall. All the delegates gathered one final time to share concluding thoughts and commitments for the coming year. When Prince Zephic's turn came to speak, he stood at the central podium and looked out over the assembly. His heart beat rapidly, but his voice was steady and clear. Honored delegates, he began, I stand before you tonight to admit a terrible mistake and to ask for your forgiveness. The hall grew completely quiet. Even the usual background sounds of breathing and movement seemed to stop. 3 days ago, I spoke cruel and ignorant words about the human species. I called them primitive and unworthy. I was completely wrong. Murmurs began to spread through the assembled delegates. Many looked surprised, others nodded with approval. I have spent these past days learning the truth about humans, and I am ashamed of my ignorance. They are not primitive. They are wise. They are not selfish. They are generous beyond measure. They are not unworthy. They are among the most honorable beings I have ever encountered. Prince Zephic looked directly at the human section where Ravi sat with his colleagues. Ambassador Chen, when you walked away from my insults without responding, I thought you were showing weakness. I now understand that you were showing strength of a kind I had never seen before. You demonstrated that dignity preserved is more powerful than pride defended. The prince paused, then continued with growing conviction. I formally request that the Valdderan Empire begin immediate cultural exchange programs with Earth. We have much to learn from human wisdom, and I believe they might benefit from our technology. But more importantly, I want our young people to grow up understanding each other instead of fearing differences they do not understand. As Prince Zephic stepped down from the podium, the entire assembly rose in applause, but the prince noticed that Ravi was not clapping. Instead, the human ambassador was standing quietly, nodding with approval and respect. Later, as the delegates prepared to return to their homeworlds, Ravi approached Prince Zephic one final time. Your Highness, he said, what you did tonight took tremendous courage. I believe our species will become great friends. Prince Zephic smiled, feeling truly happy for the first time in days. Ambassador, I hope someday I can be as wise as you showed me it is possible to be. As the ships departed Harmony Point and scattered across the galaxy, they carried with them a new understanding. Sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest. Sometimes walking away in dignity accomplishes more than fighting back in anger. And sometimes a young prince can learn the most important lesson of his life from watching someone choose wisdom over pride.